Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Friday, June 4th, 2021. And our top story today, checking your credit report and protecting yourself and your family from fraud. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Rod Griffin. He's Senior Director of Public Education and Advocacy for Experian. Rod, it is so great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Great. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is, look, we had on this week someone from the Federal Reserve of Bank of New York talking about this reopening, the impact of small business owners, but consumers also impacted for obvious reasons, getting out there to spend. If they're out there spending, one of the things they probably should be looking at as they're kind of recalibrating to this new normal is taking a look at their credit score and their credit report. But I want to get your perspective on this. Why is it important? Why should we be doing that?
Sure. And even before the pandemic, it was important to check that credit report and that credit score because it's foundational to your financial life. It's one of those key components. Understanding what your credit history says and what your credit scores are, especially if you're planning to apply for credit, gives you control over what happens when you walk in to apply for that loan, for example. Can also give you insight into whether or not you've been a victim of identity theft. And during the pandemic, we saw predators come out and try to take advantage of people. So getting that report, you might find things that show you're a victim of identity theft. Having that report and knowing where you are in terms of a score can help you prepare to make an application and know when you walk in that the bank's going to say, absolutely, we want you to be a customer. And we kind of call it, one of the things we've said is it's kind of like having credit swagger. You can walk in and know that you're going to be ready to make that application and get the credit you need when you need it.
Yeah, and we're seeing credit scores be really important when it comes to people buying homes, right? I mean, they're being pre-qualified for some level of mortgage. I have to think that this kind of relates back to the credit score. What if you notice something that is inappropriate or not correct on your credit score? Can you email or put in writing an objection and have that kind of vetted?
Yeah. And even easier than that, if you see something you believe is inaccurate, we encourage people to dispute that information. And to do that, all you have to do is go to experian.com/dispute and follow the instructions. If you have a current copy of your personal report, we'll pop that up on the screen. You just enter that report number. If you don't have a report already, we'll give you a free one. We'll ask for some information and give you a free one right there online. It's secure, it's encrypted. And with every entry, there's a button that says, I need to dispute this. And you click the button and we'll walk through what that is. Is it not yours? Is it an issue of fraud? Is it something you've never been late on? Whatever the issue might be, and you complete a shopping cart essentially. And when you're finished, hit submit, and we go back and complete that dispute process. If you have documentation you want to send, you can upload it right through the system, and we'll send all of the documentation you have as well. You can also write, or you can call and dispute. It's not as fast. And so when you dispute online, it's fast, it's secure. It's actually safer than writing when you think about sending a letter that says it's going to Experian and here's all of my identifying information so you can get the credit report. When people get involved, that's when fraud happens. And so what most people tell us is they actually prefer to dispute online because it's easier and faster and actually safer.
Yeah, and I mean that you're outlining a much better way. I guess I'm from the old school where we used to have to submit things in writing or even fax things, if you can believe that. Let's talk about protecting our accounts, because you said this in your opening remarks about just so much fraud out there. We saw what happened with the Colonial Pipeline, which wasn't directly related to an individual, but I've been reading about Social Security scams, Medicare scams. There are a lot of bad actors out there right now, people looking to treat people unfairly, take advantage, especially of the elderly. This is really the time to take the necessary steps. What should we be thinking about when we're, to protect ourselves from those data breaches?
Yeah, and I think data breaches being key. If, for example, you are notified of a breach and they offer a free monitoring service, take advantage of that service. It will let you know when something new is added to your report. Doesn't cost anything, doesn't hurt your creditworthiness. If you're concerned and you don't have that option, you can enroll for a free monitoring service from Experian, for example, and just go to Experian.com. We don't charge for that. If you want a premium service and different certain things, you can pay an additional fee. You don't have to, so you'll get a basic monitoring service at no cost. So great tool to use. It's important to be notified early. The reality, sadly, I don't know why I'm smiling, because it's not something to smile about, but we're all already victims. Our identity's been stolen, and it doesn't always involve a credit report. I was a victim of identity theft from tax fraud. So there was a breach at the IRS apparently, and they got my wife and I's information. Wouldn't have shown anything on the credit report. So identity thieves are clever, but monitoring that report, checking it, goes back to that first piece of our conversation. Check that credit report regularly, know what's in it, because that's going to help protect you. If you are a victim, there are steps you should take. So first and foremost, add what we call an initial security alert to your credit report. It says, I may be a victim of identity theft. You can go to Experian.com/fraud and do that. We'll notify the other credit bureaus of that notice, of that alert. They'll add it as well. So it provides some protection. You get another free copy of your report. Check it. If you find you are a victim, add what we call an extended victim alert. That lasts 7 years, and it says, I am a victim of identity theft. You can provide a telephone number or two, like a day and evening, work and home. And that tells lenders, I am a victim of identity theft. Before granting credit, my name, call me. You'll need to file a police report first, or a valid identity theft report. So that too is easy to do. I can tell you from experience. I went to my little police department in Texas and said, I think I'm a victim of fraud. And the officer immediately said, let me get the form. So even small towns know about it. And those two things generally are enough to protect a consumer if they believe they're a victim. They have to be responded to under federal law. They can't be ignored. But if you have ongoing fraud, or you are elderly and aren't using credit, or you have an elderly parent, you might consider freezing your credit file. And that's really simple to do as well. Go to Experian.com/freeze, and we'll issue you a PIN number. And anytime you want to access that report, if you're applying for credit, you'll need to lift the freeze first. I always stress, though, that freezing your credit file will not prevent identity theft. I hear that said often, and it's simply not true. It doesn't stop a data breach. It doesn't stop one from stealing documents from your trash. But if someone uses your identity to try to apply for new credit, it would not be able to be accessed, and it would stop in that fairly narrow circumstance. So it's a tool in the toolbox. It's just important to understand what the limitations are with a freeze and what it does and doesn't do. It's not right for everybody, but it is right for some, depending on where you are in life and what's happening.
Certainly good to know the options. Rod, I need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about some more tips to avoid some of these horrific privacy scams. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking to Rod Griffin of Experian. Rod, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Sure, glad to.
Yeah, this is really important. And I want to hit on something. Number one, we all can be victims and are victims in a lot of cases of privacy theft, credit theft. This isn't something to be ashamed of. This isn't always completely preventable because things get leaked to the dark web all the time. So I think number one, Rod, we shouldn't feel shameful if this happens to us.
No, absolutely not. It's absolutely true. I'm a victim of identity theft. And mentioned that I've had my identity stolen and used to commit tax fraud. One of the things you mentioned is the dark web, and Experian, and our monitoring service actually scans the dark web. My name's turned up there. So my identity's out there, and so is almost everybody else, really. And, it's already been stolen. The question is, how do you make sure it's not misused? And there's nothing to be ashamed of there. There's often you can do everything right, and it's not your fault. So you are absolutely correct. Don't be ashamed or embarrassed about that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to ask you, let's talk about the level of sophistication that these bad actors have. And I want to give a couple of examples that I've heard about. People pretending to be the Internal Revenue Service, people pretending to work for Amazon, pretending to work for a bank. The IRS never calls you. They will never call, as far as I know. But I want to get your thoughts about this, because this is really predatory behavior, very sophisticated. They can actually put things on your device, whether it's your laptop or your phone or your tablet, to take a look at your screen and look at what you're inputting. You've got to be very alert to these types of scams.
Absolutely. You touched on a number of different approaches. All of it is a form, with the exception of malware, perhaps, of what we call social engineering. Fraudsters prey on your goodwill and your trust, and that's a hard thing to overcome. You may get what we call pretext call, as you mentioned, someone calling, posing as your bank or the IRS. They will never call you. If a person calls and says that they are with your bank and they need your account number or your password or both, they are not with your bank. Your bank knows what your password, knows what your account number is. They won't ask for your password. So be aware of that. Same thing's true if someone calls and says they're from Experian. We do not call people outbound directly. So we wouldn't call you unless you have contacted us and we're calling to assist you in some way. So someone says they're from Experian and you didn't need help, that's not us. So really hard to overcome that temptation to provide information, because it's sort of something we're taught. And it's a positive behavior and characteristic that fraudsters take advantage of. When you think about malware, when you go to websites, if you don't know the name of the company, if you're shopping and it sounds like a great deal, probably isn't. And they may be installing what we call worms or viruses on your computer, or keystroke trackers, so they're tracking everything you input. So you have to be really careful. Invest in tools like virus software and virus detection software. I always do, to make sure that your computer system's protected. It's worth the expense.
Yeah, and let's just say hypothetically that you are hacked. A lot of, I know someone who actually had a gift card. The gift card, one day they checked their gift card balance, it was zero. They lost $500. Someone else had been contacted by one of these bad actors and actually sent money through their bank to an account that was given to them by one of these bad actors, thinking that they were acting appropriately. And Experian isn't a bank in the sense that it's like a Bank of America or Wells Fargo, but there are steps you can take in terms of recouping some of this money, right? Like a Bank of America or a Wells Fargo or a Chase. They have protocols in place to try to number one, resolve the fraud, track the fraud, but also try to get back some or all the money that you may have lost. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's true. And often the bank may call you if someone steals a credit card number, for example. They may call you before you know anything's happening, because they monitor the way cards are being used, and if it fits certain patterns, they know it's indicative of fraud. I've had that happen. I've had actually when I was shopping for the holidays, and the bank called me and said, "We're going to block your card because it's being used in ways you usually don't." And I went, "Yeah, but it's the holidays, so it really is me." And so they're protecting you. But the law also provides some protection. So if you're using a credit card and fraud occurs and you notify that lender, your losses are limited to $50 of those losses. In most cases, the bank will waive those costs as well. There's usually no cost to you. The key is to act immediately when you find out something's going on. Notify that lender, tell them you've been a victim. They may ask you to file a police report or a fraud affidavit with the Federal Trade Commission, for example, and do some paperwork. It's worth doing, and usually they can help you resolve that pretty quickly and with limited cost. Time it can be a factor.
Yeah, we often talk about financial literacy and think about budgeting and spending and monitoring all that and putting money away. This is an important part as well. We need to be vigilant with all of our accounts, make sure all of our information is updated in all of our accounts, and we're watching over this thing. It's unfortunate that we have to do it, but it's something you have to do. Rod, it's so great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning, and we look forward to having you back very soon.
Great. Thank you very much. Glad to be here anytime and happy to answer any questions I can and help in any way we can.
Thanks, Rod. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your perspective. And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow for BRN Weekly. I'll be joined by a very special guest, and we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited, and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.